morning. So, welcome to another episode of Catapult Your Career, where we delve into the reality of various roles and explore practical advice for various professions. So, the focus today is actually going to be on a world very much known to myself around coaching. And we're going to delve into what the job of a career coach looks and feels like. And none other than a good friend of mine that I thought I could invite to join me today to speak about the world of coaching is Natasha. How are you, Natasha?
Hi, Michael. Good. Great to see you, and excited to talk about all things career coaching with you this morning.
Amazing, amazing. So, for I suppose a good place to start, I suppose, is where if you kind of talk a little bit about yourself, perhaps your background,
Mm.
and then we kind of go from there in terms of our focus today.
Yeah, sure. So let me start with what the right now. So right now, I would say I'm a career coach. Um, I set up on my own, self-employed, about 18 months, coming up to 2 years ago now.
Hmm.
And I work with people primarily in their 20s, 30s, sometimes older, to help them with navigating their career, their next steps. And I'm sure we'll talk more about kind of the practicalities of what that involves. Um, Before that, so for the 10 years prior, I was still in this world of careers, but my title then was career consultant, and I moved into a managerial position within the university setting. So I say I've been in this world now of careers development, employability for a little over a decade. Um, and spent a good 10 years, including some maternity leave, but a good 10 years working at two universities in London, working directly with students and graduates, and career changers who'd come along to university to do more education as part of changing career. So a lot of one-to-one support, but also workshops, working with academics, working with student societies. And obviously, as I became more into managerial leadership position, the role, got
Yeah,
taken a bit more away from that side and was doing more of the managing team, strategy leadership. So I guess like me coming back into the world of career coaching directly almost 2 years ago was like me coming back into having that direct impact and be able to work with people one to one
yeah.
career coaching, which is what I loved. I started my career more in professional services. So after uni, I went actually not a graduate scheme, but a graduate job at a big Bloomberg, a big financial data company. Then I went into consulting at Deloitte. So I had my time in my 20s of trying things out. Some things were great, some things were not so great, navigating it. And then, came into the world of university careers. Kind of, no, was it by chance? No, I think I'd figured out the aspects of my job I enjoyed and was thinking about the kind of things that actually interest me, and that's what took me in that direction. But yes, I've had quite a varied career to date, but now I am a pure career coach as of almost 2 years now.
Amazing, and I mean, it sounds like there's a real wealth of experience there, and a real kind of background in terms of like all the different things you've done, and it's interesting to see all the different pivots you made. I think that in itself would be quite helpful for listeners to think. You don't have to kind of do university and then I know I'm going to be a veterinary surgeon. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to do that 10 year
Mm,
pathway, and that's it. And it
yeah.
sounds like you've kind of done a wealth of things to almost get to the place you are today. So it's kind of it's quite interesting to hear. And I suppose focusing initially on your role now as a career coach, I suppose the $1 million question: what actually is a career coach?
Yeah. And I think it is career coaching is actually in itself quite broad. So I would say career coaching is when you're working with someone, or sometimes it could be a group of people,
Hmm.
around defining and supporting them to get to their goals, career goals. Sometimes extends to life goals actually, because
Hmm.
obviously it's such a big crossover, or to help them navigate tricky work situations, to help them or navigate work situations full stop. Maybe they're not even tricky. So I would say career coaching is anything regarding choices and decisions um, around things that affect your working life.
Hmm.
I'd say it's different because we all had, or actually I don't know if we did all have, because I don't think it is always that common at school, a career advisor. And there's always that sense of like, okay, I come to you and I say, or that person will magically say, yeah, you should be a teacher, yeah, you should be, and it's like this
Yeah.
one thing, and this is one thing for life. And like, it's career coaching is very much not that. Like, It's around exploring, sometimes challenge, gentle challenge, sometimes strong challenge, motivating, holding people accountable. But ultimately, like, we, like, as coaches, I'm sure you like agree, like, we believe that everyone has potential, everyone has, like, we have like unconditional positive regard for our clients, but it's not about telling them what to do. Like, of course, sometimes if it's okay with them, I might suggest something, particularly when people are earlier on, they don't necessarily have the best, like, insight into all different areas. Like, of course, I'm not going to hold back information, hold back things, but it's not about, yes, you should definitely do this, yes, you definitely that, and
Yeah.
that's your one career choice. So it's getting them to think about the situation, getting them to work out their actions and next steps, but of course guided and underpinned by, like, career coaching principles, techniques, research, knowledge of, like, career development. So yeah, that, I would
Mm.
say, is how I would define career coaching, and I guess career coaching as opposed to career advice.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, that's a really good kind of distinction to make, I suppose, in terms of the world of coaching. That it's very much like a level relationship, isn't it? Like, I suppose the best way to
Hmm.
describe the difference between people hear these terms, coaching and mentoring. Mentoring is almost an unequal relationship where the mentor tells you what to do, as
Yeah.
the coach, you're kind of side by side. And I suppose it's interesting. You mentioned at the beginning you focus those conversations more on, you could say, millennials, so people in their 20s and 30s.
Mm.
Before I kind of share, I kind of have a similar interest in those kind of group of people as well. But before I share kind of my experience, what's the reason for you, I suppose, that you focus on
Yeah.
that kind of cohort?
I I think it's really hard to figure out things in that stage, and also,
Mm,
like, yeah, people might set out on a path, and then it might be something that maybe their family or parents have told them or strongly encouraged them to do, or that they've done because that's what their friends were doing or what was the norm from their course. So I think, and obviously a lot of the time people don't engage with their university career service. It's very normal. Even though
yep.
I went into that world, I think I only went once, like at the very end of fourth year. So, and so I think I just see there's a real need there when people first come out of university, but also in their mid to late 20s, 30s, where actually they're questioning, why am I doing this? How did I end up doing this? I don't really feel fulfilled. I should be happy. I'm
Yeah.
earning this, I'm doing that, I'm a manager, like, but I'm not. And also, because I know that in companies, a lot of money is often invested into, like, executive coaching and executive this and leadership coaching and leadership training. But, and it's not to say the people earlier on don't get anything, but there's not as much easily accessible. Um, so I think I just feel there is, like, actually a big need there for people. Like, I know from my own experience and that of my friends, of, now of clients or people I talk to, prospective clients, or just people I talk to in general, like, this figuring out this stuff is hard and we procrastinate on it, or it's just, where do you start? Like, if you think you're going to be X job for, like, your career, and then actually you're like, I don't think I can do this for the next 30, 40, 50 years, like, where do you go to support that? And sometimes people are quite surprised. Oh, I thought, that was just something that happened at, we got that support at school or university. That some people don't necessarily aware that actually, yeah, there's still people you can go to access this kind of support, and, yeah, to access this as an adult, I guess. So that's why, and obviously it ties in really nicely with, what I was doing in the universities, like that kind of mid, or early stage, and obviously I know a lot about what graduates and people in their 20s go on to do. So I guess it's what I was already experienced in, but actually what I am really interested in and passionate about. And I didn't focus straight away on that area. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'll career coach anyone. But then I
Mm.
obviously came to know, like, realize, like, no, this is, like, the area I want to focus on, and it made more sense for me to, like, kind of put myself out there with that
Yeah,
focus.
I love that, and I think for those listeners who might be aware of stuff like Ikigai and other bits where you're kind of mapping your interests, your skills, what you can be paid for. I suppose you've kind of really articulated that really well. Like, in terms of that, yes, you had an expertise with the university, so you had a kind of key skill set, I suppose, around that area. But equally, it's something you're passionate about. And as you quite rightly said, I often think about our kind of colleagues and friends. Like, I would say easily, 2 out of 5, probably a lot more are not satisfied or enjoy their current roles.
Mm,
So there's an area or a need for people to have that support. You've got a clear kind of skill set, and you have a passion, an inherent passion to kind of help those people, I suppose.
mm,
But I suppose with that piece, really, it's quite an interesting and quite a varied job by the sounds of it. What would you say? Like the average week, it's always a really hard question to
mm.
answer. But what does like the average week look for you now as a
Yeah.
career coach?
So it would look like, so in any, and I think I would talk about a week rather than a day because the days are quite different. But in a
Hmm.
week, I would probably have a few what I call discovery calls, where someone who has maybe found me on LinkedIn or been recommended to me, and who is actually at a bit of a career crossroads themselves, books in a call where I would hear about what's going on for them, and then talk about how I think we could work together. So I have a few of those. And then obviously some of those then turn into clients, some don't, and that's fine. It's still good for them to. I'm more than happy to talk to them. So some discovery calls, obviously some client calls, and so I normally primarily work via Zoom. I still haven't had any local clients. I live in Kent, no one so far in Kent. So I tend to work with people via Zoom because obviously in terms of travel, it's much easier. In terms of they can fit it into lunch breaks, and those calls can really. I do have clients I see in the day, but also I do see people in the evenings, and even Saturday mornings as well sometimes. Which again is fine with me because part of, I don't know if we'll talk about this later, but like part of my just driver and decision about going self-employed is that flexibility, because I have young children and 2 days a week, Thursday, Friday for now. I don't really, well, I guess I don't work. I do still do work, but I don't work in the days really with him. I might have evening sessions like Thursday and Friday. This week I had career coaching sessions in the evening, which is great for me. So I have that flexibility and that ownership of my schedule to plan out. But yeah, I'll have discovery calls. I have client coaching calls. They tend to be between an hour and a half and 2 hours, because I normally see people, at least 3 times, normally kind of 6 times or so. So coaching sessions with them. I still do work for universities. I do a day a week with a university in London, working in a business school, coaching their students, coaching their finalists and graduates. Sometimes that's here, as in remotely. Sometimes I go up to Canary Wharf to do that. Workshops. So this week I'm going in to do a reflective workshop for a group of people who've just done a consultancy project, and then I've got a meeting later on in London about another piece of work I'm doing. So sometimes it's, delivery, training, workshops, either virtual or in person. Tuesday I've got 2 international workshops with an international group. And then I also will do some random little projects as well sometimes. So I say random because they either might find me or I might find them. So there is a lot of variety. It's not like I spend Monday to Friday or, all my 3 working days purely doing coaching.
Yeah.
And then the bit I haven't mentioned, which probably I haven't mentioned because it's not the bit that I love quite as much, is of course there is also all the things that get involved in doing a business. So invoicing, I mean, that kind of side I'm fine with, like invoicing and respond, like all the emails, client contact. There's the marketing side, as it were, like actually putting content out on LinkedIn or whatever platform you choose. Connecting with people, like how I met with you, which is really important to me, like speaking to other coaches, which obviously I do enjoy that bit. Thinking about a plan, strategy, working out like what am I aiming towards next, like okay, I want to do this thing, but actually when can I fit this in? So there's all the business administration, business development, which obviously runs alongside the delivery. Like me personally, to be honest, love the delivery side. That is what but I obviously, as now a self-employed person, do have to do all the other side as well. So I have to make space for that. So that would be, all various different components, which is for me good. I really like that variety. Like I remember one week where I met a coaching client in London, then went off to a workshop, then went to see like a coach friend first for a drink. Then I went to have dinner with like a friend I had for a long time. And that to me is like my perfect day, like different
Mm.
things, variety. If I was doing, if I was doing coaching all day, every day, that would be fine. But if I was writing workshops all day, every day, that is not a good thing for me because I need like chunks of variety and different things in my day, really.
Amazing, and I think that's really helpful to kind of like share for our listeners when they listen to these various episodes and they're thinking what roles I want to do, and if they wanted to be a career coach, if it kind of inspired them. I suppose a key aspect by abundance is variety, and if that is something you love, then obviously that's a massive tick, and that's one of the reasons why I've been drawn to it as well. Like I like to constantly learn, I like to constantly grow, I like
Mm,
the stimulation of different jobs and tasks, and I think that variety is a real key, I suppose, aspect. And on that kind of similar theme, I suppose what are some of the like the skills or I suppose you need to be a career coach? If someone's like, oh, I
mm.
quite like the sound of this, like helping people talk about careers, I like the variety aspect. You mentioned the opportunity to obviously be self-employed. If you were to kind of say to someone like what kind of skills you kind of need to help kind of do the role as a career coach, what are some of the ones that kind of come to mind?
Yeah. Um, I think listening, first of all, I think you have to be an active, good listener and to really hear and really hear what they're saying beyond
Yeah.
what their words are saying.
Mm,
Um, Connecting, I guess, like that kind of interpersonal connection, rapport building,
mm,
um, communication, curiosity, I think, as well. And you just
definitely.
mentioned learning, and I think it's like I have a lot of different, even though they're in the same age bracket, they're all over the world, they're different, like in different professions. So you need to know, you need to be curious to find out a base level of different things, really, because or that you can navigate talking like, one morning with a, let's say, a medical communications person through to the afternoon you're talking to a teacher or I'm trying to like a developer, like a software developer. So it's not like I have to be an expert in all those careers, like, but I need to be able to at least navigate and not, yeah. So I guess curiosity and being able to kind of learn about different things. Um, I think it's like, is it? I feel there's always a big debate. I remember, like in the university, like, is it empathy? I personally, I think it is. Sometimes I think it is empathy. I can't remember if there's one person saying once like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't be empathy," but I think to me it is. I think
Yeah.
often people are really sharing with you things that maybe they're not actually necessarily sharing even with their closest, because it's, yeah, because with coaching you're giving them that time and space just to focus on them. I'm not coming back and saying like, oh, yeah, I had that, or oh, it's the same for me, or like, let me tell you about what my experience of that. Like, it's a it is a two-way conversation, but it's really the focus on them. So I think empathy, understanding, and it's just, it's not just it isn't just a conversation. Like, there is training and skill that goes into it, and knowledge. So I think it's applying the things you know about career development and coaching techniques and getting the best out of people and moving people forward whilst holding a conversation where you're listening and you're supporting
Mm,
and you're really making them feel understood. So there would be the skills, I would say. And then I think also being organized, because if you're self-employed, like, you have to organize your own time, you have to do the things that you need to do to get paid in some
yeah.
ways. If I don't send invoices out, I won't get paid. If I don't spend time putting posts on LinkedIn, no one's going to find me. No one's going to know. So I guess it's also being organised and effective with your time. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing all that. I mean, there's so many kind of core elements you shared, and I think I agree with you in terms of empathy. I think you 100% need it. I think a core element that I kind of got taught when I went through my, you said about building skills, when I went through my own kind of coaching
Mm,
course and coaching education, and it really sticks in my mind, is we're there to guide, support, and challenge the clients, and I absolutely love it. So
mm,
there's not a lot of realms or people that will do all three aspects. You'll have a lot of people who will support you, so they're your cheerleader.
yeah.
You'll have a lot of people who will perhaps challenge you, and you will might have a lot of people who guide you. But it's very rare you have someone who does all three, ticks all three
Mm,
boxes. So I think that empathy is important, because you're there, you're listening to their situation, you're empathetic, but equally you're not being drawn too much into it and saying, yes, no, I know it's hard, yeah, I completely agree. At
mm,
the end of the day, you're there to give them that respectful challenge as well to grow, aren't you?
yeah. Objective. Yeah. I think I really like the way you just summed that up. And that made me think as well, another skill be questioning as well, like effective questioning.
Mm,
Um, is a really good skill for coaching. But you get trained
Definitely.
in that if that's something that you don't feel necessarily as confident with at the start.
Yeah, yeah, and then I suppose talking about being a career coach, you mentioned what an average week looks like, and some of the skills which are quite integral to kind of being a career coach. If someone was to come to yourself in that mold, you said in the 20s, 30s, might be older,
Mm-hmm.
but it's who's looking for that kind of career transition or career piece. What are some of the steps and processes you kind of take them through to help them?
Yeah, so I guess it's really going to depend on kind of where they are now, what they want to achieve. But if someone comes and says, like, I just feel I don't want to keep doing this, but I don't know what I want to do next. And often it's like, I don't know what my skills are anymore. I don't.
Mm,
So the steps I'd take them through is actually, we don't rush off to Google. We don't rush off to like look at jobs. It's actually get them to think about themselves first, like their career so far. We talk about that, or their life so far in some ways. So what choices they've made before, the like the highs and lows, what made them highs and lows. And we don't, it's not like spending sessions on that. It's like part of the first session on that to enable me to understand them, to maybe put a mirror up against some of those things and they will notice things about themselves. Then we look at their values, like what is fundamentally important to them, strengths are the things that energize them and that they're good at, skills, because sometimes I think you can have skills that don't actually necessarily energize you.
mm,
Like you could be now a skilled podcast recorder, but you might not want to be doing like recording all day long, but you can do it, and but it's not going to be the thing. Well, maybe it is like that. The tech side might not be energizing you.
yeah.
Um, Motivators. So we're really like digging into what makes them. Um, Looking at, then we move on to look at what do they want, work in terms of work life integration, in terms of environment, in terms of tasks they're going to do, what their day looks like, what their week like, just really figuring out like what is important to them before we then start to dig into, well, to generate ideas, to dig into ideas they already have. And like I'm not going to hold back. If it's with their permission, like if they're okay for me to suggest something, of course I will, because sometimes people are really looking for that, like, please let me know any ideas you have. Maybe I've come from a family where I don't have anyone who, they sometimes people don't feel they have other people in their lives, or they don't have that kind of understanding or network themselves. um so yeah, looking at options that they generate themselves that maybe I might suggest. How do we research those? How can you build a network? And then really funneling down onto a plan, like not leaving them high and dry. Like, what, now you know yourself better, now you know what's important to you, now you've looked into these things or this thing, what's your plan, like how are you going to get there? And then we might like look at more practical things like CV, like enhancing their CV, because like not all career coaches will do that. I actually quite like doing that stuff, so I'll still do CV coaching, interview coaching, application coaching, LinkedIn, like. And also your plan of getting there, like, so you're saying you want to do this, like what are the steps to get there? It's not just about, it can just be about clicking apply for jobs, but often it's not. Like, who are you talking to, how are you talking about your skills and your experience? So yeah, really taking them through all those steps, so by the end they feel really clear about, this is what I want to do, but also this is why I want to do it. And that process, I feel like, helps them in the future as well, because likelihood is people may well change job again, or they may well, do another pivot, or they might go for a promotion. And it's just like thinking about how they can know themselves better about why I want to do this choice. And it feels like a good choice. It feels like a definite choice, as opposed to just having just something I did, just something I tried out, just something I did because my parents wanted me to do it. So
Hmm.
yeah, that would probably be, yeah. And we do that through coaching exercises, through conversations, through tools, and through things they do between sessions as well. It's like not everything is going to happen in that time alone. And they'll spend time reflecting on things or researching things or talking to people between the sessions as well.
Amazing. I mean, there's so much kind of rich information in there, I suppose, that people can hopefully take away. And I mean, some of the core bits I took away, it's such a holistic service. It's not just for those who have had negative experiences and, they're in their school kind of early years and they see that, get that career advice. And it's like, right, yeah, you're going to be a veterinary surgeon. I say, off you go. Like, you're being told what to do. Whereas there's such a focus on all the different aspects of them first and foremost, rather than even considering career paths. It's, what's important to them, what makes them tick, what's their interest, what's their strengths, what's their motivators in life, I suppose, which is incredibly important. And there's a book that I'm sure everybody has heard, or a TED talk by obviously Simon Sinek, in terms of his Start With Why piece. And I think it's really important what you said about your, really instilling in them, what is their why? What kind of makes them tick? What is the end? Forgetting about the role, and I suppose my why, and I kind of very took a lot of inspiration from Simon Sinek, is to inspire others to do what inspires them. And I suppose that's why we're in the career we're in. We're a career coach because we want to inspire people to do what inspires them. And I suppose telling it to you now, you mentioned about, you're self-employed, you're a career coach and all the rest of it. I'm just interested, what are your values or why? What is kind of your passions, I suppose, to allow you to kind of get to the point you are today?
Yeah. So I guess like what my the why is that I think like you could say life is too short, or rather we spend so much time working, not like it makes such a fundamental part of our life, and it has a role on effect of, like, it spills out into how we are outside of our life, that it's really important to spend like time thinking about it. Like, obviously there's so many practical things, like people need to get paid, and it's like not everyone has the liberty, the freedom to just be like, oh yeah, sure, I'll be an artist. Like, I understand that, but I think it's, for me, fundamentally, like, it's okay and it's important to seek out support, to look at, like, to spend time reflecting on this thing, because there are things you can do to make your work life better for yourself, and that can feel really scary and it's super daunting. So I guess I want to provide that support that people might not be getting elsewhere, to enable them to do that, to normalize making changes, to normalize, like, it's okay to change career. Like, obviously I focus more early to mid, but I've got coach friends who focus on that later stage and like later stages, and that, like, to normalize that career changes, career pivots are amazing. It's not all about climbing that ladder. So values, it's help, like, for me, like, helping others is a massive one. That's what, my buzz from work is always like, where if my clients, if they like get the change that they want in terms of a job, or maybe like more like a realization, like having impact on them, making their lives better, are probably my big drivers. And what else? I probably should have prepared this. And I keep thinking, actually, because I spend so long with clients, like, looking at this, and maybe I should actually know mine off by heart. Like, I think maybe this isn't around career coach, like things like authenticity and integrity are really important to me. Like, I don't want to, sorry if you can hear drilling next door. Those things. But I think what drives me in my work is, like, helping others, making a difference, and that, to other people's lives in the way, through my work, in the way I can.
Amazing, and I think what you shared is really powerful. I mean, like, the helping others, and I actually share that value in terms of integrity. I suppose my four are kind of like fulfillment, freedom, lifelong learning, integrity, and it's very, like you said, when you do that piece with others in terms of values, it can be really illuminating in terms of careers. It won't, when you do that values piece, you're not going to all of a sudden say, oh yes, I want to be X, Y, Z, but it's going to really, from like a wide net, it's going to kind of just make it a bit more specific, and that integrity, I suppose, is massive, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think for me as well, right now, a choice behind, and this is what I see often with my clients, a choice behind what I'm doing is that work-life integration. Like, I want something where now my eldest is in school, where I don't have, I have more, I don't work as much in the summer, in the school holidays. And I guess it's that work-life integration that I can, the sports day next Friday, I don't really work Fridays anyway, but, like, I know, or if there was something going on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, like, I can block out that time, or I can, so that, for me, that I'm not having to go to London every single day, or that I'm not having to go. So I guess, is that a value? I guess it's that family work-life integration, ownership in what I do. Yes, I'm saying loads of values now: ownership, variety. It's good. I need to be like you and just know them off by heart. But yeah, you're reminding me of what some of mine are from saying yours.
And I suppose it's a journey, isn't it? Obviously, I know a few off by heart, and it's also important to say that values change. Like, they are the core components of you. So they don't really often change day to day. They're often kind of a core element of you. but what my values might be in, say, more 5 years or 10 years time might be different. And I
Yeah.
really chime with your one around the family, and I suppose that's one of the main reasons why freedom is one for me. You know,
Mm.
I'm 28. There's no right or wrong time to have children per se, but in the horizon, in the next 5 years, I am thinking of that. And that's a really important piece, you know, to see people like yourself, Natasha. I suppose it's inspiring to kind of see that's what I would like to do when I have children. You
Mm.
know, I don't perhaps want to just kind of have 2 weeks paternity and then I'm off. I want to be able to
Mm.
pop out and kind of help with my wife at the time. So
Yeah.
I think it's really powerful the stuff you share.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I think, oh, just I was
well,
going to
go
say
on,
on
sorry.
values as well. One thing that's quite interesting is like often at this, I do the values piece quite early on, and often clients can be in quite a bad place, like if they, if they're burnt out, if they've had a really negative experience at work, and we will always revisit those values. And it's quite interesting sometimes that actually later on, like some of the things are still very true, but others, those values, like say if they were treated really badly, um, integrity or trust might be so strong from that time, but actually you know, a month or two on, it's not that it's not important anymore, but things do move around, and sometimes it can be quite symptomatic of like the situation you're
Yeah.
in at that time. Because, like you say, values can change, um, and I think sometimes, yeah, you can things feel stronger when you're living through a tough time or an amazing time. Like,
100%. And I suppose the power of a coach, and it's not to kind of share my own bias, I suppose, being a coach, but is you have that safe space to kind of increase self awareness. So what you've just said is
mm,
absolutely spot on. Like someone might not know the impact their situation is having on them and how they're having more intensified feelings and emotions around certain things. And by having that coach who's there to, as I said again, like to guide, support, and challenge you, they hold that space for you to kind of unpick the various things that are happening to you. So you think, crikey, that this is really important. Why is this? You know, I always say if you're not, you know, you don't like the word emotion or whatever, it's data. It's like, why is this really important to me? Why does this keep
mm,
nagging my mind? And by having people like yourself, Natasha, to kind of unpick that for them, it really makes them realize, no, this is important to me. This is kind of really twigging something deep in my soul. And perhaps it's that value, I suppose.
mm,
So, in terms of your, I suppose the last kind of couple bits, I suppose for me really is you mentioned briefly about your past experience. I'm thinking again with people in mind who either want to interact with coaching or more
mm.
importantly want to become a career coach.
Yeah,
What are some of the past experiences that you think have really served you well in terms of transitioning to where you are now?
yeah. I guess on on a personal level, that experience of in my kind of mid 20s of
Mm,
I don't want to do this, but what do I want to do? And then moving job and really quickly being like, this is not the right environment for me. And probably I can, yeah. So like, and actually just not like, yeah, not knowing who to turn to because I felt at that
mm,
time it's not like I could really say to people in that company like I don't want to. I'm really a So I think it's that personal experience of really finding it hard to navigate, and that I was in a role that was making me really unhappy. Not all of it. There was ups and downs, but that fundamentally I knew was wrong, but I didn't know like yeah how to figure out what to do next. So I think it's that personal experience. Um, Being involved in recruitment. I'm not saying you have to be a career coach, but I think like being involved in interviewing, job ads, developing, recruiting and developing people, onboarding people, like an awareness of that obviously um, helps, does help.
mm.
Um, Having worked in university careers, like I've obviously
Yeah.
come across people in lots of different sectors, lots of different professions, worked at lots of different companies, um, knowledge of career theories, knowledge of career development, all the training I went through personally in that role. And I'll get on to qualifications in a moment, but like the training. So I think if you're thinking of career coaching for you to do, or career coaching or coaching, I think anything that, even if you're in a super technical role, even if you're doing something which you doesn't necessarily lend itself to that, try and seek opportunities, maybe things like mentoring or to be involved in new new joiner onboarding, or to give some training to someone, to a group of people. Like, I think try out those experiences where you are more directly involved in the supporting of people, and you'll learn. Do training yourself. Like, are there things in your workplace, or are there things outside of work which you might invest in yourself, which train you up in some of those things? And see, like, do you know, when you're being trained in it, does it interest you? Does it enjoy you reading things? There's a lot of career development information you can find online. So I think those experiences, and then obviously doing a qualification where you get so we had loads of training
Yeah.
at work, but like the actual external qualification in coaching, and the practical and being observed and getting feedback and learning different techniques and trying different techniques, and enjoying that, and that making me feel, even at the time when I did it, like, oh, I think I'd like to do this, but maybe not right now. Like, and I no
Yeah.
regrets. I think I made the right choice to stay. I wasn't even really on the fence. I knew I didn't want to do it yet, like I'm doing it now. But yeah, to the proper training. But probably I would say don't rush to do the qualification until you've tried out like being a mentor or supporting someone, or have, to actually see, because they're expensive. You're paying for it yourself, they're expensive. So maybe do some soft tries out first of coaching, or do your own reading about coaching, just to check that it is something you do want to invest. And if you do, great, and go for it, and it'll be amazing.
Amazing.
Mhm.
I mean, that it's so much. I suppose there's so much powerful things you shared, and it's funny in hindsight. We look back and you look at, like, you entered, by all intents and purposes, quite like a corporate career with Bloomberg and kind of Deloitte, and
Mm,
then you kind of entered the university space in terms of kind of coaching advice, and then you kind of ended up where you are today. It's almost no surprise, really, how you've ended where you are today with all the given experiences you had. And I think it's also important for people when they're in difficult and tough times. And of course, there's certain behaviours and environments you need to leave, you need to get out of straight away, of course. But there's a real key concept about learning. And actually, like, whatever job you're in,
mm,
whether it's good or bad, is going to teach you something. And even
yeah,
in my earlier years, or at the age of 28, I look back on my past experiences, and every single thing, whether it's positive or negative, has kind of taught me something. Has allowed me to kind of
yeah,
pivot, and go down that windy tree, I suppose.
yeah,
Um, and we've given all the experiences you had, I suppose, and now entering that kind of more formal career coach space, and being self-employed as you are. If there was one or two bits of pieces of advice, I suppose, that you were, if you were to speak to Natasha 5 years ago,
mm,
when she was kind of perhaps at the university and considering maybe transitioning to where you are now, what are some of the things in mind you think you would have told Natasha then?
That's a really good question. Um, I think because by that stage 5 years ago, this was already kind of an idea I had in my head. So probably actually to do some more of that testing it out. Um,
Mm,
or what do I mean by that? Because it wasn't until 2020 I started to test it out. 2020 had some, like, I did some career coaching externally for free, um, outside of work, and I was starting to, but I think probably maybe to have tested out earlier, and maybe to start to look into and connect with um, people, career coaches in that space who were doing it, to get more of a sense. Because I think I naively thought, I'll put my website out. I spent too long doing that, so it kind of, I put my website out and thought, okay, I've got a website, people will find me, and that isn't the case. There's a lot more you have to do. Um, Obviously, some people will find you just from your website or from having your title on LinkedIn, but there's more than that. So I think probably to have accelerated to where I am now, it would have been more of that research of others, connecting with others, because actually, I mean, you connect, like, you approached me, and I didn't, and I was like super happy to do that, and that's happened a few times. And I think I think it's amazing you've done that, and obviously I'm assuming you would contact with, like, connect to other people as well. And I think I didn't do that. I did speak to some people I knew already who were in this field, but I didn't go broader. Um, so I think I if I'd have done that, it would have let me know a bit sooner about the challenges or things to think about or tips and advice. Like I joined a really brilliant like business development type group with Joanne, a lot of business of coaching, and that was about 8 months in. So I think I would have, yeah. But then equally, I think personally, it's probably good. It was good not to rush into all that stuff, because I think there was a bit of an adjustment phase of like leaving. Basically, I was 4 days a week, so leaving full time employment, going into this lifestyle. So I think actually maybe if I had gone straight into like completely, maybe yeah, actually, I think maybe there was some good in doing some of that stuff a bit later. But maybe if I'd have been more informed, and that I'd done more of the coaching outside of work along the side, which I could have done, which I like, and work would have been fine with, I'm sure, as long as it wasn't university students I was trying to get to pay, which obviously I would never have done.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that would have helped me. So I think it's just always like that, trying it out, getting a sense. And it wouldn't have changed what I'd done, but I think it would have given me more confidence in my own abilities, given me more awareness of how to navigate this. And I'll be really honest, it's still a learning curve. I know that still I'm not doing things in some things in an optimal way. More around that business administration. Like I know there's still a way to go, but
Mm.
it's good enough, and it's not causing problems. It's good enough, and things are good enough, and sometimes good enough is good enough, which is another lesson I've had to learn the last 6 months or so.
Amazing, amazing, and I think there's so much power to what you say in terms of that networking piece and the research and testing it. And I think that's something I always think about. If people have, once they get to that, they've gone through that process, that holistic process you mentioned earlier on around the values, the strengths, and all the rest of it, and then they get to more the identifying what career paths they want to do. Like I always say, volunteering is an amazing opportunity to do some of these things, because when you say test it, you know, often the biggest barrier we have is around price and money. So we actually pay, like someone has to pay us money to do that.
Mm,
Well, a good way just to get rid of it is volunteering. So,
mm,
there's amazing charities. I'm thinking like the Princess Trust and
yeah,
various other ones off the top of my
yeah,
head, where if you were to go into coaching, you could volunteer
mm,
with them. You can, especially the Princess Trust is more targeted around a certain cohort and age of people. So if
yeah,
you already have an understanding of what age, that you can bear that in mind, and then that allows you to get that knowledge. And then the networking piece, I think, is absolutely integral. I mean,
mm,
I thoroughly encourage people to reach out, and just because you reach out to someone doesn't mean you're going to do that career for the rest of your life and that's it.
no,
You might reach out to them and realize, oh crikey, now I know the reality.
yeah, yeah. I had a client who recently like had thought they were quite keen on doing this thing, and they
Mm,
went for an interview. They applied for a role and had an interview, and actually, even that process of interviewing made them realize, like, no, it doesn't. And because we've done the work on values, like, it doesn't meet this value. It wouldn't give me this. Um, so actually, yeah, like, I'm not saying to necessarily apply for everything, but actually, even
no,
sometimes, like, trying it out or being in that interview situation can make you realize, like, which is amazing, because much better to do that rather than start a job and be like, this isn't. And
exactly.
like, I wonder in hindsight if I had, who knows, and we'll never know. And I agree with you that everything counts towards something. But had I have known myself a bit better, and what really mattered to me before I went into consulting, would there have been red flags in the interview? Maybe. Would there have been things that, and it's not a bad, like, obviously so many people have a brilliant, it just wasn't the right career for me and for what mattered to me.
Yeah,
Would there have been things that maybe, or if I had an external person kind of coaching me through it and to unpick what happened in the interview, like, I can't, to be honest, I don't remember now if there was anything, but yeah, like, just having someone to help you navigate those choices. But like you say, no regrets, because actually that experience, even though it was a personally not a great time for
mm,
me, it did actually build my resilience, or it built, actually some of those tools of like using PowerPoint, using Excel, those, it did, I gained a lot from it, even if actually, and the resilience, I like, yeah, when my resilience was tested, it also grew that muscle, I guess, as well. So no regrets.
Definitely. There's always learnings in all parts of life, and like you said, it's part of your journey. And I suppose that's the brilliance of coaching. I suppose that one of the core fundamentals it often tries to do is raise that self awareness. And the more you know about yourself, the more informed you can make about decision. I suppose it
Mm.
makes something like coaching, which some people might think is quite intangible. If you were to make any decision on a
Mm.
car or a house, you're going to know, right, okay, how much does it cost? What are some of the things I have to do when I buy the house, and all the rest of it, you're getting data. And just
Yeah.
like that with coaching, it's giving you more self-awareness. The more data you have about yourself, the more informed your decisions can be. So
Hmm.
I completely
Hmm.
completely agree. And I suppose if people have been enlightened and inspired by this
Hmm.
conversation, and that they want to pursue perhaps being a career coach, or even get coaching
Yeah.
themselves, where's the best place for them to connect with yourself,
Yeah,
Natasha?
and please do, if anyone is listening to this and thinks, I'd be quite interested in doing that, do. I'm more than happy to talk to you. And equally, if anyone's like, oh, I think I'd like to work with Natasha or as a career coach, do get in touch. So connect with me on LinkedIn, Natasha Weller. You can find me on LinkedIn very easily. Um, my company name is FutureProsper, so you can find my website www.futureprosper.co.uk. And you can book in a free call with me from that, or contact me that way. But yeah, please um, do reach out. I'm more than happy to support people wanting to enter this work, or obviously, I'm more than happy to support new clients as well.
Amazing, amazing. And I'll make sure to include links to some of the things you've mentioned there in the kind of show notes for people. And yeah, hopefully for those who are listening, whether it's aspiring to become a career coach or going to coaching or even receive coaching themselves, I truly often, like some people say about therapy, I think coaching is something that everybody should receive. I
Mm,
think it really
mm,
kind of reveals the layers, almost if you see yourself as an onion, reveals some of the
yeah.
layers within yourself. So it's a real powerful tool. But hopefully you've been inspired and learnt something from today. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. So without further ado, thanks, Natasha, for your time. And I'll
Thank
see you
you.
all when we next meet. Cheers, all.